Hi, everybody. Welcome into Talking Town, a rare Talking Town in that we are celebrating a win, our fourth in the Premier League this season. And as you can see, like Amari Hutchinson and Leif Davis last night, missing from the squad is the Gov, but we've brought in the ever-dependable, the assist-worthy Lee Anderson coming off the bench. Lee, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. All refreshed after my holiday and a nice win to celebrate last night. Although sitting on the edge of your seat, or the floor, as the case may be, for the last sort of 15 minutes or so.
Exactly. If you're new to Talking Town, you won't get this, but Lee has been with us probably since the start, haven't you? Since 2020, with little cameo appearances, I would say.
Yeah, probably after a few months. Yeah, during lockdown at some point. Yeah, not right from the very start. But
it's always been a running joke that Lee likes to come onto the show sitting on the floor. His wife won't let him sit on the new sofa, I think. Is that right, Lee?
Not just new. It's been puffed up. So once it's puffed up, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Town were puffed up. Town were puffed up last night, Lee. I mean, before we get into the game, I mean, what was your kind of feeling on it? I mean, there was such a wide gap, wasn't there, between Town and Wolves, them having beaten West Ham the night before. What was your kind of feeling going into the game? Was it kind of just like, we're just trying to get through the 90 minutes and the remainder of the season?
Yeah, I think it's got to that point now where it's just game by game. And then because Wolves have been on a bit of a run, that sort of, they've just got so far ahead that you can't really think about, we can survive. I think it's just trying to, as you say, survive one game at a time and see what we can get from it. But I've always been, particularly away from home, always not been really confident, but always felt that we do ourselves a bit more justice away from home. And Bournemouth had been on a bit of a bad run at home, hadn't they? I think they'd lost their previous 3 at home. So although last night a lot of people see it as a surprise, I wouldn't say it was a shock because they've not been playing too great. So I think that levelled the game a little bit more, I would say.
Surprising, really, because the last time I saw them, I think, was at St James's Park, where they absolutely tore Newcastle apart 4-1. And kind of leading the line that day was Cliver. And obviously he didn't play last night, which I think was probably gave him just a little bit more added motivation, given that I think he scored something like 12 goals this season. I mean, they're doing fantastically well, aren't they, Bournemouth? It kind of reminds me of that kind of Burley era when we got back into the Premier League 25 years ago now. Dare we say it? But they're kind of knocking on the door of the Champions League. It's faded from a little bit, but certainly knocking on the door of Europe, aren't they? And when you consider how big Dean Court, now the Vitality Stadium is, doesn't even hold 12,000, I think. It's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, of course they're doing really well. They've managed to survive that first season. They built, didn't they? Then they got relegated and have managed to survive that sort of first season again. But I think there's a lot of, generally, the wage bill sorts itself out in the Premier League to some degree. And I think when you get teams like Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Brighton, those sort of real sort of established mid-table teams, they're always going to go on a bit of a run, but there's always 2 or 3 that fall away towards the end, and those sort of bigger, like, I mean, not Tottenham so much this season, but some of the even more established bigger clubs tend to pull their way out of it. And I think Bournemouth is one of those teams that probably going to fall away a little bit and just not quite going to finish sort of 10th or 11th or something like, out of the European positions. That's what it seems like to me.
Well, their manager, Andoni Iraola, of course, is getting linked to the Tottenham job, which is good because McKenna obviously was getting linked to that not so long ago. So that might take him out of the firing line there. But let's get ourselves back to last night then. So, well, I mean, what I was surprised by it, Lee, kind of a shock. I didn't really fathom this, but it's probably not a surprise. We were the only team in not 4, but 5 of the top flight divisions. So all 4 of the professional football league, Premier League through the Football League and the conference, not to have won a game in 2025, which hadn't kind of dawned on me, but I suppose it's not a surprise considering our last win was against Chelsea on December the 30th, I think. A bit of quick mathematics, not my strongest point. I think that was 93 days ago. If I'd said to you, Lee, after that win, where we had kind of comfortably beaten Chelsea, who were probably the richest assembled side in Premier League history, beat them 2-0, you never have thought we'd be going into April for our next win, right?
No. But if you look back to the previous 2 seasons under McKenna, we've always had a bit of a dip. So I thought we'd have a bit of a dip, or we started to have a bit of a dip. And I thought, get the signings in, then by sort of February, get the cup out of the way, you get into February and then you start to pick the results up again. Because I think the last 2 seasons previously have been mirrored that way. And I felt the same here, but it hasn't. It's just dragged on a little bit more. And yeah, it's to not have any win at all is not a great stat. But you've got the cups in between those. And I don't know about you, but there seems such a big gap between the Premier League games because obviously you're playing less. And then there's more free weeks because of internationals, but then there's other cup games and things. And it just seems you just seem to go too long without another game. So it seems to be really long. So I'm not sure how many games it is. It must be 10 games without a win. Was it something like that?
Yeah, it must be something like that.
But
I mean, I think with Town not having a game for, 18 days after the Forest debacle, I would call it, 3 down at half time. Maybe it did them some good. I know players go away. I mean, like Burgess had to go and play for Australia in China, for example. Enciso went and had a good campaign for Paraguay, scored a really good goal there. They come back. I mean, a little break there might have done us some good. I mean, certainly it bears it out with the result last night, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, where did we pick up some injuries on international duty? I mean, Hutchinson. Was he injured?
Yeah, they said that he was his first training session back after the England 21s. He picked up the hamstring. I think Leaf was a thigh injury, possibly. But they kept that kind of under wraps, didn't they? There was no kind of... I mean, I always say this, McKenna, poker face in the press conference. You'd never know, would you? You'd never know.
No, he just keeps his... I mean, it makes a difference because playing Broadhead and Hutchinson, they're completely different players, aren't they? So that, they'd have probably been set up for the pacing behind a little bit more and the direct running. But what they got was Broadhead coming off the front line and picking up the pockets and pushing the ball around. So yeah, but I mean, Bournemouth had a cup game, didn't they? So I mean, you can look at it 2 ways after the game. I mean, hindsight's always a great thing, as McKenna says, and they've come off a cup game. I'm not sure what team they played, but we had that full break. But McKenna likes the games. He says it's good to keep the momentum going, to have, even if it's a cup game, the squad travels. There are a few changes, don't get me wrong, but you're keeping in that training rhythm and keeping things going. So you've got to keep training really fresh to train for 2 weeks.
Exactly. I think they played a game at Portman Road, I think, with like a mixture of the first team, the B team of the first team, some academy kids as well, just to keep everyone ticking over. I mean, it's so different, isn't it, playing in a stadium, albeit an empty one, to being at the training ground. But let's get into the side, because there was 6 changes to the side that had played Forest. Another big stat that came through was that McKenna has made 90 changes now, Lee, in 30 games in the Premier League this season, which I think is, well, it's dead on the nose, isn't it? 3 a game. I mean, unbelievable. What's your take on that? The new Tinkerman. Step round Ranieri. Here's McKenna.
Well, I think if you go back to his early days in League One, he would pick players based on the tactical side of things. So, and he's always been confident that he can replace like for like. He's always said that. Yes, he's going to have his starters and he's going to have that. But I remember going back to the Championship where Burgess has been playing and they dropped him for 1 game and bought
Edmondson, wasn't it?
Edmondson in for 1 game and then took him out again. But he said we picked him because of his extra pace against, and his profile against the forward. So overall, it doesn't surprise me. 90 seems quite a lot. I'd be interested to see what the other stats say for the other teams, but some of those were enforced injuries as well. So they're not all,
tactical.
Tactical. We've
forced upon him.
Yeah, we've had a few. We've had a lot more injuries this season, down to the physicality of the Premier League and players stepping up. So yeah, but it's still quite a lot. But yeah, you never really know what you're going to get. You just don't. And, but that
life is like a box of chocolates, Lee, with McKenna, as Forrest Gump said. Big shout out to Chris McTaggart. It's given us $10 New Zealand. We've been watched on the other side of the globe here, Lee. Big shout out to Greg Nichols as well, who's also watching from New Zealand. So there we go. The Town fan base far and wide across the globe. So the 6 changes, Lee, last night. In came Axel Twanzebe. It was good to see him back. I love Axel, but just too injury / domestic accident prone for us.
Slash is a good
maybe not the right word I should be using there. Back, you mentioned him just now. Back came Burgess, which was one we predicted, me and Gov, the other evening. And in comes the surprise. In comes Connor Townsend at left back, and he's done all right, hasn't he, Townsend? We'll get your thoughts in a minute. But he's done all right in the cameos we've seen this season. And my good friend Chris Hall, West Bromwich Albion fan, who we obviously bought him from, had said he was a really dependable, safe pair of hands left back. Not quite as marauding as Leif Davis, but he did a very good Leif Davis impression last night. We'll get to that shortly. Back came in the Egyptian king, Moulsey. He comes in. Johnson came on to the right. And also on the right-hand side, which was the first time he played on the right-hand side in a game, Lee, since he played for Wigan in 2022, was Broadhead. So were you surprised by that many changes? I mean, obviously some have focused upon us with injuries. I wasn't surprised too much given how soft-centred we were against Forest, being 3-0 down at half-time for one thing.
Yeah, well, I think Burgess coming on at half-time against Forest,
Spoke volumes.
It would have been a surprise if he hadn't started. So you'd probably expected that one. Twanzebe is one on the team sheet, isn't he? He's fit, he always plays. So if he's fit, he's back in. Probably a bit of rotation with Morsey and Phillips, because Phillips had 20 stitches. 20 stitches. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, no, me neither. This is one of the things, the frustrations I've got with the club and the media, is that you don't find these things out like we say, nearly 3 weeks later. And if you've been a little bit critical about Calvin in that game and he gets subbed off and you're thinking, oh, I'm glad he's gone off. He's playing with a huge gash on his foot, for crying out loud. It'd be nice to see that information come out sooner. So, it helps you critique what you've just seen, I think.
Well, I guess if we'd had another game, you would probably find out quicker. The fact that we haven't, you found out next game and he's managed to be stitched up and get on the bench. But I mean, Broadhead, I guess, was a surprise. Not so much for Hutchinson, but he's played Jaden out there, hasn't he? But I think Jaden's played more the wing back role, where Johnson came in, and Johnson has played that role quite a bit away from home.
He has.
So yes, there are 6 changes, but they're not. I don't see them as panic changes or anything. I just see them as McKenna's, trust the process, his way of doing things. Johnson fits the profile away from home, and that's that's how he went. And with Johnson now, it does look a bit more of a wing backs, does it, to a point, and then 3 across the front rather than sort of like 4 across the front, because Burns, whoever would play, Murray plays a lot higher, so pushes on a little bit more. So it just seems to be a bit more of a tweaked sort of balance to how the team sits. But out of all the players, Broadhead was probably the biggest surprise for me in terms of the amount of game time he'd had previously.
Yeah. Are you surprised he's been in and out of the side this season? I mean, I know he's part of the kind of the League One to Premier League journey, which in itself is kind of remarkable. But I suppose he starts the season, doesn't he, injured, and he's kind of been in and out since then, really. And then you lose favour a little bit with the new signings coming in. But we were huge. I mean, you remember Gov called him the needle mover when he first signed, and we got him in from Everton because he come at the same time as George Hurst, didn't he? And I suppose he marks his arrival with that free kick against Sheffield Wednesday, doesn't he? I mean, it's nothing like first impressions, is there?
Well, I think as the story goes, McKenna said he's never taken one in training or something. We didn't know he had that in the locker type thing, didn't we? But I like Broadhead. So out of all the forward players, he's really the one that's different to what we've got. So I'm guessing that he doesn't fit the profile for the system that we're trying to play, because he's put Jaden in and we've had all the pace down the wings, and I think losing Ogbene and Burton's has opened the door a little bit more for him. But I understand that the club tried to sell him in the summer, and I think there was a bit to do there with not a fallout as such, but being a lot lower down the pecking order.
Yeah.
But he's knuckled down, sees his opportunity because of the other injuries, and he seems to be happy again. When you see, there just seems to be more a bounce about him. He's featured more on town TV and stuff. So I just wonder if there was a little bit of, I don't know, I wouldn't say sulk or anything like that from him, because I don't, but I just think there was.
No, I feel like surplus requirements, maybe.
Yeah. I think, probably told he was well down the pecking order and he could leave if he wants, something like that. But he's and I thought he played really well last night, to be fair.
He put in a really good shift, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He linked the ball up and he took care of the ball a little bit more than say Omari or Enciso and stuff like that.
A bit more composed on the ball for you.
Yeah, I think he can link up the midfield a bit better and and play off the lap a little bit more. I think he's got that clever movement, although he's not got blistering pace. I mean, you can see it in his goal. He's just got that little bit of cleverness about him when it's needed.
He's quick of mind, isn't he? Where probably he hasn't quite got the pace of an Enciso or an Amari Hutchinson. When he gets the ball, you can see he's quickly thinking. He reads the game. He reads the game well.
Yeah, he's more of a thing with footballer. He's clever. He's a clever footballer. He's got some tricks. And he's got a little bit of turn of pace, but there's more about him in terms of bringing others into, his situational awareness, and he always seems to have that millisecond longer on the ball. He's not rushing it so much as when Amari's under a lot of pressure. It tends to get a little bit rushed and the ball gets lost a little bit.
Yeah. I was surprised Philogene didn't actually start in where Johnson was on the right hand side. Given I know people are quite critical of Jaden. Me and Gov have been critical of Jaden. Certainly moving forward, although he has scored goals for us. Just sometimes I feel like his body language, I've said before on the show, looks like he'd rather be anywhere else rather than Pullman Road. But if you actually look at some of it that you mentioned earlier in that kind of wing back role, if you actually look at some of his defensive stats across Opta, they're actually really good. They stack up really well. So I was surprised really that Johnson got the nod. But like you said earlier, think back to some games. Leicester at home, I thought Johnson played really well in that. Fulham away, the 2-2, where he actually arrived at the far post to head onto the bar for the Smodics goal. He's had some really good moments, and maybe that's why he got that. It's those kind of things McKenna's looking at, or certainly away from home, and thinking Johnson was maybe the better option.
Yeah, I think he probably, and he's got a bit more physicality as well, isn't he? And that, I just go back to like the Man U game where we got done by 3 set pieces and we had a load of shorties on the pitch. So that, but I just wonder if there was a bit more. I think Bournemouth will play on the counter a bit and get the pace forward, but they like to get the ball in the box as well really early. So I wonder if that extra physicality, that little bit of extra height was needed, and I wonder if that's sort of the way he got the nod.
People sleep on Johnson's experience as well, I think. He's been at West Ham for God knows how long, since he was a kid. I think he had something like 60, 70 odd appearances in the Premier League there. I think I'm right in saying that, just off the top of my mind. So, yeah, look, Jaden's still young. He only really got cameos at Villa on his second return back there before we got him in. So you can see the logic. I think last night, Lee, the game, the scoreline was exactly the same, but the game really reminded me of that performance we put in at Tottenham back in November. Obviously, that was a 2-1. We go 2 up. We concede in the second half. But I thought it was a really kind of maybe our best performance of the season, but I certainly felt like it was like harmonious performance. Like Palmer was solid, because if you think back to he made one mistake, didn't he? Where he tries to find Morsey on the edge of the box playing out. Reminded me of that incident with Cahuste and Muric against Newcastle, which led to a goal. Yeah. Difference being here though was that they were able to recover quickly, and Palmer was able to get to save at his near post, wasn't he, to get out for a corner. So I thought he was really solid. I thought defensively we were excellent, blocks, clearances, and that wasn't just the defence. That was Morsey and Cahuste coming back into the back line to help with that as well. I thought, like I say, I think the midfield, I've been very critical. You've been watching the show recently. I've been critical of Cahuste because I know he's got a lot of fans here and I do like him. I just wonder what he actually brings to the table that's helping us turn, I don't know, what's looking like a defeat into a draw, or a draw into a win. But I thought last night, he was being my man of the match last night. I thought he was absolutely superb. And I think Morsey probably went more into that kind of sitting role, that kind of marshalling, sort of picking up the recoveries a little bit, that gave him the space to play really well. So I thought Cahuste was fantastic. I thought Morsey and Cahuste were brilliant last night. And the attack, we were clinical, Lee. We actually had 2 shots on target, 2 goals. That's very un-Ipswich like this season, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Where to unpick all that? Going back to the midfield. Cahuste is our best player. He's our best footballer, isn't he? He's cultured. He can break the lines if he's given the space. Defensively, there are sometimes some questions about him. I think he can be a little bit lightweight. I think, you can see he's played in. His
tackling stats aren't great, really, if you look across the season. But look, he's finding his level in the Premier League as well. It's neat for him,
yeah. So I think the physicality is probably tough for him coming from Italy.
Yeah, he's been nursing injuries most of the season, really, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's soldiered on through, but he is able to break the lines, and when he's given the ball, with his back, with his back to goal and someone on him, he's got that ability to turn
He does
and
turn
get that,
nice.
and get someone to pass to. As where when you compare him to Morsey can't do that. Not at this level.
No,
Morsey's on the, Morsey's running on full.
he's your patroller, isn't he, Moores? He's like a policeman outside the penalty box, really. He's kind of patrolling that area. That's his role, I think.
Yeah, but he's found out. He's found out when we try to play it from the back. That's the problem we have. Unless they're really pressing on to him, and he can't do what he's doing in the Championship in League One. He can do what Cajusta can do in the Premier League: turn a player and take the ball away. Morsey can do it if he's got the space and time to do it, but he hasn't got the range of passing for that. And I think had Phillips not got the gash in his foot, Phillips would be ahead of him. I think that's the front two. The forward three. I mean, the first. And Ciso just frustrates me. He does frustrate. He's a luxury player that when you're at the bottom of the table you can't afford, and then he comes up with that run for the goal. But the amount of times he's just given the ball away, and when you're trying to hold the ball, you compare him to Broadhead. Sometimes you just want your two playing off the striker just to link up the play to get you a bit more up the pitch. And there were a few times there's one time he was trying to turn on the box. Was it second half, and there's three players around him, and there's the two centre backs, two centre midfields in front of him to go back to, and he's trying to weave his way through, and we just losing the ball. You know what I mean? And they just come back. So he really sort of frustrates me to a point. But going back to the goal he scored midweek, my lad showed it to me because I've been away. So he showed it to me yesterday, and he showed me it, and I went, that's like the chance he had in the first half. We had that run, and it didn't blaze it over the bar, but he had that shot from about 30 yards.
Yeah, he likes to shoot, doesn't he?
He does, but that reminded me of the goal he scored midweek. So I wouldn't knock that bit, but sometimes his link-up play, it feels like he's just trying a bit too hard sometimes. And not really playing the patterns and playing off the cuff. But yeah, two really well taken goals. Really well.
They were.
The Broadhead goal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you found, I know you like your tactics and formations and things. I couldn't quite tell really on the TV screen. But talking of Enciso, it seemed like at some points we played 4-4-2 last night. So Enciso was actually going over onto the left side, even though he was sitting just behind Delap with Broadhead. It looked like sometimes he was going a little bit deeper into the midfield, maybe to give them a little bit more protection, maybe give Townsend a bit more protection on that left-hand side. It was quite interesting to me that, I don't know, when you think of someone like you say, he loves to get the ball, he loves to run with it, maybe not so defensively minded yet. McKenna, it seemed to me last night, I'd asked him just to tuck in a little bit. So certainly maybe when Bournemouth had possession of the ball.
Yeah, I think he had to go. So I think what happens there is that our left back needs to tuck around a little bit more. And when the ball goes out to their right back, that's when Enciso's got to track across, get in front of him. So I think that's where that looks then like that forward, isn't it? Where he's shuffled across the pitch to get in front of the full back. Because that allows then the centre to two centre backs, three, however you want to look at it. It doesn't expose Burgess because the left back can Townsend can cover around. So I think that keeps them a little bit more compact. But it was really a front three, wasn't it? Really, and they interchanged a bit. But he does put the hard yards in to get across the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely he does. Well, let's get to that first goal. For the first 15, 16 minutes, I don't think Kepa had even touched the ball. Such was like Bournemouth's kind of domination, which I suppose you've got to expect, haven't you? I felt like they were below par last night, certainly when you compare them to like the team I'd seen, the team that had beaten Nottingham Forest 5-0. Bloody hell, what a result that was. And the team that had gone to Newcastle and won their 4-1. They certainly seemed a little bit more below par last night. But I can't help think that if Ipswich could have retained or could retain Premier League status, that could be the model that we could follow. But as you rightly said earlier, they have been promoted out of the Championship to be relegated to come back again, and that's where they're sitting. So maybe there is a blueprint there in the future.
Yeah, well, I think so. In terms of that, you do what you can. We brought players in to helped this season that have improved. I mean, every player that's come in really has been better than what we had. I mean, you could argue the goalkeeper in Muric, but he's just had a bad run of it. But everybody that has come in has been an improvement on what we've had, and the players that have been better than the players that have gone out. But I think that, you know, we've bought for the future as well, and it's a journey, isn't it? And if we have to take another, you know, we take the step forward. If we take one step back to take 2 steps forward, that's how it's going to have to be. But you know, you could say, you know, the fact that it's Leicester and Southampton, the other 2 clubs down there as well. I don't know what else you can really argue with what we're trying to do. We could spaff all our money away on journeymen and then not stay up, and they're worthless. But at least we've got a low wage bill that we could probably sustain in the Championship, and we'd probably want to keep everybody. I'm not sure that we'd be forced to sell anybody because we'd have the parachute money.
In a much better position than when we got relegated last time round, when there was no parachute payments and ITV Digital went bust and we'd spent the money, hadn't we? Went into administration.
Well, that cost us to go into to administration. We'd mortgaged up to the hill. But obviously, we're backed a bit differently now. But I mean, it's frustrating that we've probably got money that we could burn. That's my frustration, because you've got teams like Fulham that are so wealthy, but they've got to play within the rules. Well, all you're doing is I think if you can show to the Premier League that you've got blank checks to write and you can fund the club, then
Newcastle like that. Newcastle like that as well, yeah.
Yeah, they are. But all the bigger clubs now have got that a monopoly, because they've built their wealth they've built their teams under a different. I mean, Man City, they've built their team under a different system, haven't they? And they've made their money under a different. And now they're benefiting from a system that's a lot tougher to compete in. So that's a bit of a frustration, really. But I think we'll do. Let's just see what happens this season and such like. But
I think even though it's disappointing that we're in the bottom 3, obviously. But I mean, if you let's look at who's in the bottom 3 with us, Southampton had been in the Premier League for a decade. So I think their fan base must be very frustrated that they've not been able to do something, because obviously they came down with parachute payments, bounced back at the first opportunity, bottom of the table. And you look at Leicester, we in the last decade have won the Premier League, won the FA Cup, been in the Champions League, been in Europe, and we're doing better than them as well. So I mean, while it is disappointing, and where did our journey start in League One? We've got people asking whether we're not going to do a link tonight. Possibly. Who's asking? The Fisherman League. We'll see. We'll see how we get through. We're going to go through the goals first. Anyway, so let's get to the goal, Lee. 34th minute, Broadhead. A marauding run is how Glenn Wheeler on Town TV and Wesley described that in CISO run. You were talking about him earlier. What I like about CISO is he actually does what no one really else does other than maybe Amari. But in CISO, we'll get that ball on the left and then he'll run centrally into the box. And I don't think we've done that enough this season. And it's direct. And I feel like we've been guilty a lot Ipswich this season of just overpassing the ball. When Ipswich have had bad results, they tend to have 400, 500, 600 passes and haven't got anywhere near the goal. Yet last night, Enciso picks it up, scares the defence with his pace, toe pokes it out to Broadhead. That Hyson comes in, doesn't he? He's getting linked with 50, 60 million moves away to either the continent or to Liverpool. Broadhead manages to avoid that sliding tackle, sticks it through Kepa's legs.
Yeah.
Gets the run of play.
Yeah, so I think we win the ball quite high up in midfield for one of the few times. And then I think, the point you made about with a lot of passing and everything, Enciso, as I said earlier, is a luxury player to a point. He plays off the cuff a bit more. So when you win the ball high up the pitch, that's what you want. You want someone that you don't really know what your teammates don't really know what he's going to do with it. You're hoping he might see a pass, which he did in the end. But he had that run, and you're right that apart from Delap, I can't think of too many times that somebody's run in from that position. I think he scored that goal against Fulham, didn't he, at Portman Road?
Right at the start of the season, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a good run.
And I think Amari's had the odd run, but we've lacked that in the forward areas. That sort of, I mean, they must do their homework, and they'd think, bloody hell, this guy's going to be able to shoot, but we're going to have to block him, stand off. Yeah. And then, of course, he's run across the left-sided back that. The left-sided full-back that has been where Markham Broadhead has drawn himself in as well, and then Ciso's just at the right time slipped the ball into Broadhead. He's had a slightly heavy touch, but in the end, it does him a favour. So it's just allowed enough time for the defender to slide across, and then for him to, I think it plays off his back. I think he cuts inside and it just shaves his back, and then it's a cool finish. Just plays it through the legs, and we're 1-up, and that's what Broadhead can do. So
you're right,
and just onside.
Yeah, God, yeah. I mean, I was celebrating. Well, I gave you a bit of a clap, really. I mean, I was like, I was thinking, God, is it going to be offside? You just never know, do you, in the Premier League? See, if we go back to the Football League, we won't have these problems next season. But Broadhead's the scorer of kind of like memorable goals, isn't he? Like we said earlier, the Sheffield Wednesday free kick. Then at Oakwell that same season, he gets the first goal, doesn't he, at the near post from the corner that sets us on the way to promotion. Then he gets the leveller against Southampton that leads to the Sarmiento goal. And then against the run of play last night, when we all feel like the season's dead and buried, he puts us one up at Bournemouth against the odds. So, I mean, I was delighted for him. And it's great, isn't it, just to see someone who's been part of that League One to Premier League journey actually scoring in all three of them divisions for us.
Yeah.
It's really good.
As I say, I think that was part of a really good performance from him. He took that really well. And there isn't many players we've got at the club that you would want to be in that position to take that. I don't think, I'm not, would you bank on Burns scoring or Ben A? I'm not sure how many goals he scores. Would Amari tuck it away with that? I think there's that little bit of composure, that little bit of football brain that he's got.
Yeah, exactly. As you said earlier.
And let's not forget that. Let's not forget the penalty against Port Vale.
Oh my God, yeah. That was nearly the first time I've never watched a penalty at Port Vale. I didn't know if I could stand to watch it. And then you have to take stock and think, we're not playing Juventus here. We're playing Port Vale.
Yeah.
Ice in his veins, wasn't it? So it says on the back of the North Stand. Ice in his veins to take that pen. Yeah. I'd be really disappointed if we do go down. Then I hope Broadhead's part of the team next season, because I feel like he'd probably go to a championship side anyway, and I feel like he could be integral to us for next season. But let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
And of course, let's get to the second goalie, Delap. When I was a kid, I used to love Roy the Rovers comic. It used to be delivered to me every Thursday, Friday, wherever it was. Within that cartoon strip was Hot Shot Hamish and Mighty Mouse. And Hot Shot Hamish was famous. They played for a Scottish Premier League team. He was famous for having such a hard shot that if the keeper dared to save it, he would go flying back through the net and be sitting in row Z. And Liam Delap's strike last night reminded me of this. I think this is goal of the season for us this season. I'll explain to you why, because there's at least 6 plays involved in it. So it goes Palmer on the 6-yard zone out to Dara. Then he passes it to Morsey on the edge of the box. So they've played out nicely, beating the press there. He then plays a nice little pass into Brody. You could see Cahuste in acres of space. Morsey's giving him the space free, saying, give me the ball. And then that pass from Cahuste out to Delap on the left-hand side. Just, if ITFC Beard's watching this, chef's kiss. That was one of the passes of the season for me from Cahuste. That was fantastic. Delap obviously gets the ball. Then Townsend, we mentioned it earlier, with the Leif Davis style run, which we've not really seen before. Fantastic run. Plays Townsend in. He squares it. Delap takes out at least 3 or 4 Bournemouth defenders. And then as soon as it's like a goal shot off a tee, isn't it? As soon as he tees it up, you knew it was going to go in the back of the net. I think this is a contender for goal of the season, just in terms of the build-up, the Cahuste vision, the Townsend run, and the power of the strike from Delap. It was just fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, it's a bit like the not quite as intricate, but a bit like the goal we scored against Coventry with the Burns outside of the foot. Where it was
that was a great build-up. Great build-up.
So it was more of a Premier League, because you can't tippy-tap at that much. But McKenna summed it up in his post-match interview that goal right from the goalkeeper was straight off the training ground. Yeah, straight off this training ground. Everything that happened, it's all been rehearsed with the overlap and everything, and it was the cutback. So a lot of times, they must do their homework, because they practice the cutback from the byline, back up the goal, and as the defender comes in, the first one, as Townsend passes it, just goes behind him, doesn't it? And then the loop round from Delap, and then as soon as it falls to him, he's about 9 yards. He's not far from the penalty spot, is he?
No,
and
exactly.
you just know he's and when you watch the other angles, it's how he hits it. He hits it with the top of his foot, so he's never going to get under the ball. A lot of strikers will, or players will, use the inside of their foot and chip it a bit, but he sort of
Thierry Henry
straightened it.
style.
Yeah, he sort of straightened his foot out, like you put the laces through it. So real Roy of the Rovers, where you put your foot down, you put your laces through it, and the fact that it hit that net, and then but by the time the goalkeeper's landed and rolled round, the ball's come out to him. Have you seen what he's just absolutely.
Goal was off his hinges, wasn't it? You saw the net actually rise at the back, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's how I did it. Colin put earlier that it reminded me of a Ted Phillips strike. If you don't know your town history watching, Ted Phillips was Ray Crawford's strike partner, was supposedly had the hardest shot in the 60s in football. And that is with them old leather balls as well, Lee.
Yeah. Sort of when you think about some of the goals Shearer would score from inside the box, that sort of, blast, put your foot through it. But it's the technique, knowing that he's going to keep that down. And that was, that was, really fantastic. But it was a well-worked move. But the ball from Kajust, he had the space. So he broke so they didn't set their press how they had been in the first half. And that broke down. I think they'll be disappointed that they allowed us out, because that was one of the only 2 or 3 times we actually managed to get out. And so as soon as it went to a Kajust, you'd know that, the tactic is for Delap to peel off. And then Townsend's already on his bike. Whether it's Townsend or whether it's Leaf, that fullback knows the same position. He knows how to play the tactics. They all know the movement, and McKenna says it. And when it comes off, it looks great. But, have you seen the Sky Sports commentary on it?
I've heard that they said it was just a hopeful punt forward or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, latches on to a hopeful.
The cheek of it.
Just keeps it in play. Then he gives it to Broadhead, who overlaps and stuff like that. And it's a punt out from Burgess or something like that. It's completely. It completely. Where they get these people from, I don't know. But it wasn't a hopeful punt. You can see him look up. He looked up to see where he hit it first time.
Yes.
It's a hopeful. What was a hopeful?
You can see him asking for the ball. He knows where it's going. Like you said, straight off the training ground. He knows what he wants to do with it. Nothing hopeful about that. It was fantastic.
No, a hopeful punt is Hurst's goal against Barnsley. That's a hopeful punt. I'm under pressure, right? That's
another central run. That's how rare they are. We can even remember them now. That was a central run.
Well, wasn't it? Yeah, that was. But yeah. So what a great move. You can see that teams. It's our real Achilles heel this season for me is we push the ball around the back. We don't pass it quick enough.
Exactly. The tempo of it.
They really know how to hem us in. But we got out. And a great goal. One of our goals this season, without doubt. Yeah.
Just look at the quality of the defenders that took it out. That Zabanya's that 27, I think, who slides in and it goes through him. That Heisen, as we said earlier, is probably going to get a summer move for 50, 60 million. He's ball watching. I think Enciso makes that run essentially, doesn't he, to go to the near post that takes out the sub Adams that come on. And then Kirkes is too late getting back in from the left back row. Actually slips as well, which I think helps. Gives even that more of the goal to aim at. Just fantastic. Just a little bit more on Kusto, like I say, because I've always felt like he's been in like a second or third gear. There's more to come from him. And obviously he scores that really good goal against Forest. Could have got him a goal in the first half himself last night, didn't he? Again, another really good run. It seems to me in the last 2-3 games, and I thought he played well against Palace as well. Just seems he's getting forward a little bit more. That's been my one criticism. I don't expect Calvin Phillips to get forward particularly. And as you said earlier, even though Morsey has created quite a few chances this season, not to the level that we've seen in the Football League. He's barely had a shot this season. He's got 1 assist, 1 goal. It suddenly seems now Cahuste is suddenly, I don't know whether or not he's got acclimatised. He's got over the knock that I think has been impacting him since Southampton away, which was back in September. I don't know, suddenly he just seems like a little bit more of a direct box-to-box midfielder, which I thought we was getting at the start of the season. But I know you called him the Rolls Royce earlier. He just feels like he's been contained a little bit. But certainly in the last 2 games and last night, I just thought it was a standout performance from him in the midfield.
Yeah, I think so, because he can break the lines, then he's got to give the ball, but then if the ball goes out wide and then it breaks down, you don't remember what he's done to turn his player. So that, when he's part of like now we're talking about his pass because we've scored from it or we've made a chance, there's a lot of time he's going to break the lines and he looks to play forward more, as where, you know, Phillips, Morsey and that, they tend to play with their back to goal, and we tend to get the ball into them, but then it goes back to the centre back. But he can turn the lines a little bit more. But I agree with your frustration. What another frustration for me this season is that when we get the ball wide and we get the crosses in, we haven't got one of the two midfielders should be arriving late in the box.
Exactly.
I don't think we do it because they use sort of like the Chaplin sort of cutback where they collapse the box, so everybody runs in to defend on the 6-yard box like they're told to do, and then we then pull out. I think if we drop somebody else in there, you're probably going to get too many people in the way. But sometimes you just got to there's got to be more people in the box. So one of the two midfielders should be at least at the top of the D, and quite often they're not even anywhere near the D. They're 10 yards back still in position. Exactly. I think
and that's one of the frustration. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we just haven't scored enough goals or got assists from midfield this season. And if you look at kind of Wolves' midfield that you'll see Saturday, their kind of midfield stats are much better than our midfielders, which may explain why they got 9 points more than us. Let's drop a link for, I think Mike wants to come on and Beep wants to come on as well. Let's get into the Bournemouth goal very quickly before the guys come on, Lee. Well, there was a nervous moment right after the lapse goal, wasn't there, when Twan Zabi collides with Semenyo. I mean, that was the faintest of touches. They give the pen. Now, thank God for VAR, right? I mean, it goes up to the video officials, and they gave it as a free kick on the edge of the box. That would have been typical Town luck, wouldn't it? To suddenly have that cushion of a 2-goal lead to only throw it away minutes later.
Yeah, but then the minutes later we did. But yeah, I mean, that was a nervous moment, and I think that's been a pattern, or it feels like it's a pattern, that we can't hold on to the leads long enough to keep that cushion going. And then obviously the longer the game goes on, the more that cushion is, perhaps the more you've got to sit back and defend it. But yeah, he justified, and it was outside. And I think one of the ones we got done for, I think when Clark got sent off, was that the foul started out.
Brentford.
Yeah. The foul started outside, but it carried on. So he's still fouling him, which is a bizarre one when he falls over. So but that one wasn't. The contact was outside, and he went in, lost the ball, and then dived. He'd taken 2 steps or so before. It was a free kick. Don't get me wrong, but felt like he was trying to take himself into the box to get a pen. But that's where VAR comes in. It was just enough outside the box to overtake.
Minimal contact too, I think. Minimal contact as well, really. You don't have to take a play, surely.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have to be a deliberate to be a foul, does it?
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be deliberate, but I guess at the pace that they're running, I don't think there's any arguments with the free kick. He's got to give it. If there's enough contact for a pen, I don't know, but that was a nervous moment, but I think we got away with that one. And then
they did, as you rightly say, they do score a few minutes later. There was a 67th minute, so like 5 minutes later or something. It was a David Brooks ball in. Johnson doesn't really do anything with it, does he? I mean, it kind of ricochets off him, falls to that Lewis Cook, who sort of drags that shot at Palmer. Palmer did kind of a Murich versus Southampton here, didn't he? A bit of a bobbler, dives, can't get hold of it, and that Eva Nilsson is there to stick it in there. Were you worried at this point? Oh, God, here we go. Brentford all over again. We've been 2 up. It's going to be 2-2 in a couple of minutes. Or we were defending well, though, weren't we, up until that point? Which is why I had a little bit more confidence in that last night.
Yeah, I think the frustration is we conceded quite early afterwards. But in terms of the game, I thought we had a foothold in the game. So it wasn't like we hadn't touched it wasn't like the first 15 minutes or, the game against Brentford after they scored 1 in the first, and we felt like we were going to
yellow them, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I felt I thought, well, we still had time. We had still a foothold in the game, and we still could get up the pitch a little bit, which helped. But the last few minutes, like from 85 minutes, we were slicing clearances all over the place. There needed to be a little bit more composure. And then there was the one from Johnson where he had too much composure. He's looking up on
he wasn't even looking, was he?
Yeah, and the ball's just nicked from him. But did someone give him a shout? Is someone talking to him? I
was shouting man on. Unfortunately, you can't hear me from Essex.
No, absolutely. But, we sort of hung on, and then Jaden made that foul, didn't he? Right on the.
Oh, right at the end, but they were right in. I mean, they added 6 minutes on, didn't they? And this was right on the 96th minute, right on the edge of the box.
Where did 6? I know there was the VAR thing, but that's not. I'm not.
They turned that around pretty quickly, didn't they? I felt.
Yeah, it wasn't too long, and I thought maybe 3 without the VAR, so I was thinking 4, maybe 5, but 6. I mean, it doesn't matter in the end. But I was more nervous when the 6 minutes come up. But again, they weren't really getting behind us, were they? They weren't really. We were still resolute. But
yeah,
if we were going to concede, it would have been down to a sloppy error with a slice clearance and such like. But yeah, I mean, we hung on. When that ball went in, I think it went just behind the guy who headed it. So that's what went over the bar.
Yeah,
didn't you have to go back a little bit? Didn't you have to go back a little bit for it?
Yeah.
I remember looking at the goal, and I'm thinking of that sort of top left as you look. I'm just waiting for the ball to go in there, because that's where it was going to go. If it was going to go in, that was where it was going to go. But
you start having internal conversations, don't you? Like, well, I would have taken a draw before the game started.
I just turned to my lad as he went to take the free kick. Well, I think it was the 94th, something like the 94th minute, and I think they had a throw in on the other side on the halfway line, and that was nearly 94.5 minutes. I just turned to my lad and said, "Well, at least we're not going to get beat." And
yeah,
then
exactly.
Because we've seen it all season. So
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I think that was borne out in some of our clearances at the end. I mean, I talk about how well we defended. It was a little bit panicked and rushed, wasn't it, at the end? But they're trying to hold on to, what is our 4th win of the season, and it's, we came out with so much momentum, didn't we? It's been a really disappointing campaign from that, for the players to have to keep lifting themselves. And I said to Martin on Tuesday on the show that I felt like Fulham away was one of the catalysts, where we were 2-1 up in exactly the same scenario here, and then concede another pen, don't we, in 90 plus whatever, to draw the game. And you could see they were desperate not for that to happen again, but they held on and got the 3 points. And there were great scenes at the end, wasn't there? All the players came over, and I tell you what did make me laugh when we'd scored the opener league was that "How shit must you be? We're winning away" chant, which made me chuckle. But again, I know a lot of Ipswich fans couldn't go last night because of the nature of the Vitality Stadium. I think your way allocation something like 1,100, 1,200 max.
Yeah.
It was great to see the town supported, and obviously they was on the camera side, so all you could hear was the town supporters. I mean, brilliant. I mean, the guys were saying on the comments here earlier, you look at Southampton, bottom of the table, St Mary's is half full. They know they're going down, could be relegated this weekend, I think. But Ipswich still there in numbers, be it home and away, aren't they?
I just think it just shows there is, I say negativity is not the right word. I think frustration, but I think we've been away so long and we've seen so much decline. And you don't really understand how bad the decline is until the takeover and you realise how much decline the club was in. And I think Ipswich fans have always been quite intelligent, most of them. And the journey this is just one step in the journey, isn't it? And it's going to continue. The investment's still there to improve the training ground, upgrade to the stadium. This is all just still part of a bigger picture. As where other teams, look at Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, for example, just as two, they're just not going to, unless some other owner comes in, they're just not going to be able to build that infrastructure where they're based. And so, in 2 or 3 years' time, where will we be? If we can
get Bournemouth are now. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, the blueprints of success are there, aren't they? And we certainly seem to have it all set up off the pitch to do so. It's just been a little bit disappointing, like you say, frustrating. I mean, Govaway says it feels like a missed opportunity a little bit, given that, as you say, we've been away 20 plus years, and then we're going to go back down probably at the first hurdle. Thanks very much, David Bergen. I think he stuck €5 in earlier. He's put another €10 in. You save your money there, David. He's coming over with Adam on the weekend league for the Wolves game. So they'll be flying over from Ireland, which is fantastic. Staying over.
Oh, good.
True supporters. Wonderful. Right, Martin, who have we got? This is a roulette wheel, this, Lee. I don't know who's coming in. Who have we got? Here he is.
Evening, gentlemen. How you doing? All right?
How you doing? All right?
Yeah, good. Nice to have a win last night, wasn't it, eh?
And your man was playing, Burgess.
Look, I've been a Burgess fan for a long time. Him and Burns, 2 players I highly rate. And unfortunately, Burns obviously been injured. But Burgess last night again proved why he should have been a nailed-on starter for most of the season.
He's very good. Yeah.
He's reading of the game, and the funny thing was there was a bit during I think it was the second half. He was running back to get the ball back to the keeper, and the commentator said, "Yeah, Burgess has got some pace."
He did say that, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what, right? You never really associate Burgess with pace, but he was bloody spot on. He was very much, he was on it last night. He looked fit. He looked good. For me, he's been. I mean, from where we were to where we are now, he has to be the most improved player.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Probably in the three teams that got promoted. I can't see of any other player that's improved so much and has made, this has been the frustration. And look, I know we spent money on Greaves coming in, but for me, he's had a couple of good games, but his reading the game is so sort of lacking of experience, I would say. Really, I think maybe in a couple of years' time, he may well be a very good defender, and I think, when you're losing games all the time, you are going to be a little bit more critical and a little bit more head loss in my case, probably. But Burgess last night, very close to man of the match for me, but I gave it to Townsend. I thought he was outstanding on that left-hand side. Look, if Davies goes, we haven't got to worry about that left-hand side because Townsend was just simply brilliant. Look, Morsey's had come in for some criticism from himself and probably a few others. But I thought he had a steady Eddie game last night. Looked tired. Probably should have come off 10 minutes earlier than he did. But, proper leadership. And the thing about last night, for the first time in a long time, I felt we played like a team rather than 11 players just going out, Look, I'll be very critical of McKenna this season. We all dreamt to be here, but in reality, it's been a bit of a nightmare. We won 4 games, and there was probably games there we should have won. Games we, like Bournemouth at home, Southampton at home. That for me, Southampton at home was the nail in the coffin for me. That was when I realised actually,
result. Yeah,
we're going down, and there's many fans losing their head at the moment because we won yesterday. That we're going to suddenly survive. If this had have been, I don't know, 5 games back or 10 games back, I'd have probably it would have been. I think the problem is too far too late. And the only thing that may save us is if we finish third from bottom and Man City get points deductions. That might be the only thing. That's the only way I can see us. I can see us surviving.
Can you imagine?
I mean, last night Brody in the 10. I didn't see that coming, and and Encio, whatever his name is, really done what I was talking to Cruncher about. Getting his head up and running at players and looking for a pass, which is what he did last night. Brody's first touch wasn't great, but how he sent that player on his arse and then between the legs of the keeper. Can't go wrong with that. And then Delap, Jesus Christ. I wonder what speed that ball hit the back of the net because that whole goal moved. I swear to God, I thought that was going to go through the net. That was it, some venom. I mean, I don't care. You could have 10 keepers in there. If that keeper had been in the way, he'd have gone in the back of the net with it. And that was a great overlap by Townsend, and for the lap that was off a training ground. You could see that, overlap. I'll cut back, and straight in there, bang, 2-0. And obviously, I know they scored. There's always a chance they were going to score, but it was how he finished the game. There was a few. O'Shea, I thought O'Shea had a good game. It's just his distribution sometimes a little bit wayward. It's not the greatest, but I thought he had a good game. Probably the poorest player was Johnson. I was talking to Cruncher about this, and he was saying, what he asked me the question is, what is Johnson? Is he a right back? Is he a right wing back? Is he a right forward? Or is he just a plain winger? And I can't give him an answer because I don't know what I don't know what he is, because I think he could play right. He'll be our right back next year probably. And Harry Clark comes back, hopefully. I think a good couple of players in the championship, and like I said, look, I think all fans need to just enjoy the rest of the season now, including me, and just understand that we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the championship. There's no two ways about that. Wolves are playing well. They're getting results, and we beat Wolves with 6 points behind them. No, we're 7, because their goal difference is miles superior than ours. So we could draw on level points at the end of the season. We're still going down. So, are they going to lose many games? I've looked at their running. I think they'll lose a few, but they're not going to lose enough for us. We'd have to beat some big teams, Arsenal, Chelsea. We got to beat these teams. And
we've gone back to back, Mike, haven't we? It's Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle back 3 games on the trot.
Yeah, look, we ain't get. Look, I fancy our chances against Chelsea, because they're a little bit hit and miss. But I mean, after Wolves, like I said, Newcastle, Arsenal, we were ripped apart by Newcastle. Defended well against Arsenal. I can't see us getting nothing from those 2 games. So look, just look. In the days, it's been a tough whole season, and with me and maybe a few others have lost their heads a little bit with it all. But I've accepted that. I've been quite negative at times, but it's only because I want this club to do well. I want this club to stay in the Premier League. And I do feel it's been a bit of a missed opportunity. Do I think we've spent wisely in the transfer? I would argue yes and no to that. But look, every fan last night that was able to go to that Bournemouth game, come away buzzing, And I think the most important thing right now is to say, look, just enjoy the win tonight. And just to enjoy that win and see what happens on Saturday. Because Saturday could be a different game altogether, and we could be having completely opposite the conversation. So, look.
Well, home form's been bad. It's 1 win all season, isn't it?
Well, home form has been the home form has been
it's the Achilles heel, isn't it? Really?
There's been a number of factors. I think a bit of naivety by Kieran McKenna and the team. I think changing the team too much has been another factor.
Yeah.
It is sometimes you think, has he got a lottery machine there with the players and deciding what he's choosing there? Because, with respects, we're not playing in Europe, so we haven't got to rotate. There's no reason for us to rotate as much as we have, unless it's for injuries, and I get that. So there's that. I don't think some of our signings have been particularly great, i.e. Muric. Ben Godfrey. Phillips has been a bit of a disappointment, even though he's got a little bit better. But for a player of his ilk, you think, wow, you expect a bit more. And like you say, it's been a difficult season for us. And if we was to finish 17th at the end of it, then I think every fan would have taken it. The reality is, if we'd have beaten Southampton, and where we are right now, I'd have kind of felt that maybe we had a chance to stay up. But we just got to accept relegation and just go back next season. No free hits. No credit in the bank from McKenna. He's got, we'll lose players, we'll bring in players, and we go again, and we enjoy the season next season. And hopefully we get 1 or 2 more wins this season. But at the end of the day, it's been a good evening last night. Another away win against a very strong Premier League side. On that note, I just feel that there's not much else I can say, really. I've got nothing negative as such.
We'll leave it there, shall we? Lovely to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Good job sitting down. Good job sitting down.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Have we got Steve with us?
All right, guys.
We have. How you doing, Steve? All right.
I don't know. I'm a bit shocked after all that. There's not much I can disagree with there, with Mike.
Oh my God.
I agree with most of it, to be honest. A couple of things I disagree with, but at the end of the day, we can't have everything, can we? But no, it was one of those. There was a lot of negativity around, and everyone was going, "Oh, well, we're just going out with a whimper." We needed some fight. We needed some spirit.
Yes.
I think we all have really accepted the fact we pretty much know our fate. You know what I mean? And we just wanted to show some. We wanted the team to show us some fight, some spirit going into the summer. And that last night proved that. and it showed the fans are like the fans are still with the team no matter what, you know. And they were brilliant last night. You know, they were gallows humour and all sorts. It was fantastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like every game I've seen, yeah, the opposition have said the fans have been fantastic. You know, no matter where we've gone, and like that to us, it should be a huge credit to every single person who goes to games. You know, whether home or away. You know, the fans are always mentioned about how good they are and how noisy and they sing all the time. And I think yesterday was, you know, there's things that, like Mike said, that I agree with. There's some I disagree with. You know, at the end of the day, I think we started off at a handicap because I think we went into the Championship and we didn't expect promotion, and nobody really. I don't even think the club expected promotion, so we didn't plan for promotion. So we were really hamstrung. Leicester and Southampton and Leeds probably planned for promotion and going into the Premier League. We weren't. So right from the start, we were on the back foot. We could only really start planning for promotion when it was looking like we were going to get promotion. By that time, the window had shut. Even the January window had shut because it started so late on. So all our planning had to come in the summer. And it was very fast, very frantic, very hectic. And I think next season, we'll probably look at the Championship a little bit differently. We won't look at it and say, well, we might survive in the Championship. Let's see how well we can do. We'll be going into it like Leicester and Leeds were. We want to get up this season. So we've got to build a side that will take us further. You know, like I said, I made a post on Discord. Maybe I worded it wrong and used the wrong people. Yeah. But there will be some people from League One that are going to have to move on and make way for some new players because some of the players we've got are not good enough. Yeah. Some of the players we've got are good enough. Yeah. Everybody can pick and choose their own ones, who they are. They're all going to be different, probably. You know what I mean? But it's every team evolves, and every team has to evolve. And if we keep thinking this mindset of, well, we want to keep this player because it's been on the journey, that's sentiment, and nobody advances with sentiment.
Exactly. Yeah.
My idea is if we see a player, and we get a player, yeah, who's better than say Chaplin moves on. If we keep Amari, yeah, Chaplin's not going to be a starter anyway. You know, if we keep, you know, say we keep Burns, I'd argue Benny will start before him because we've just paid out 8 figures for him. You know, well, he's not going to be a starter, and these players might want to be starters. You know, we've got to realise that as well. It's not all about, well, we want to keep him. These players might want to play, and I would have absolutely no problem in them players moving on to further their careers in some way if their careers cannot be furthered here. Yeah. And if we're bringing in players to replace these players, yeah, and making us better, which is what we all want, to make us into a team where we're sustainable in the Premier League and we can get further in the Premier League, because that's what we're going to have to do. Yeah, we took some punts, but like I said, we were in such a rush to get the team built for the Premier League. Like I said, we started the first 2 games with the League One team virtually. You know what I mean? So, you know, we made some mistakes. You know, I think were people judging Phillips on his time at Leeds? Probably. I think we should have probably judged him more on his time at West Ham, which was the year before. Yeah. And it probably wasn't as good. You know what I mean? So I think we saw that with a bit of blue-tinted glasses sort of thing. You know, there were the likes of, you know, Muric who come in and had a stinker. You know, have we been poor? No, we haven't. I still say in most games we've been in it. Yeah, it's been stupid mistakes, errors, yeah, and a little bit of naivety that's probably cost us results. Some games we've been smashed, 100%. We were poor in them, but you're going to get that. You know, every team gets that. You know, Leicester's had that. Southampton's had that. Wolves has had that. You know, Brighton's had a spanking. You know, every team gets a spanking. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're a million miles away even now. You know what I mean? I think we're maybe a couple of players, an extra couple of players. So if we'd have had, you know, Palmer from the beginning instead of Muric, obviously all this comes with hindsight, and we don't have it. You know, I don't think we're a million miles away. Like yesterday, we played Bournemouth, a team only 2 or 3 weeks ago was being touted for Europe. Yeah, at their patch, and you could say we played them off the park because we played them at their game. Normally they're the counter-attacking team, but yesterday we wanted to be the counter-attacking team, and they had all the ball. And I'm not sure they knew what to do with it because they're not used to having the ball all the time. They're used to catching the ball and catching like Forrester. used to catching teams on the break. And they could, obviously the likes of Clivert wasn't there, and they found it difficult to do that. And we took advantage of that. And that's what we needed to do more this season. Find out what we're good at, what we can be effective at. And I think, to be honest, for a club like us, maybe it is to be some sort of counter-attack side. I think we wanted to be a bit too progressive. I think sometimes we were better playing like we did last night and just soak up as much pressure and then hit up. We've proved we can do it.
Chelsea at home, Steve. That's how we played that.
Chelsea, we did a fantastic defensive game against Arsenal. We did it last night against Bournemouth. So we proved we can do it, but we just wanted to be everything to all things. We want to be that little bit extra, have that little bit. Sometimes you've got to be pragmatic and say, I want that. We haven't got the tools for it. So let's just, but I think that's all things that we'll learn, and I think to this season, I don't think many people expected promotion. I said 4th to 8th when we were Championship. I was delighted we got promoted. I was never going to turn it down. But we use it as a learning experience, and the players use it as a learning experience. And we go into next season, we give it everything we've got. We've only played one Championship side, and they're in the playoffs right now, and we took them to pieces.
We did.
They didn't know what day of the week it was, and we didn't even have our first strength squad in. That was our second team. So I have nothing to fear going back to the Championship. The Championship's going to be, people will say it'll be a lot stronger with Birmingham and Wrexham. I question that, but that's just me.
No, Birmingham bring us some money, don't they, with them? And we don't know what Wrexham will be like, really. They've spent a lot on the league, haven't they?
Newcastle brings some money in the Premier League, but money's only good enough if you can spend it.
Yeah.
We've got money, but you can't spend it. We will be able to spend more money next season than what Birmingham will. We will be able to spend more money than what most other teams in the Championship will. That's just the way the football finances work. So it doesn't matter how much money you've got, it's how much you can spend. I think the new training facilities, when they come on stream, will benefit us, because that will allow more players to want to come and play for us. Don't know why. They seem to get excited for having nice training facilities. Okay, fair enough. And, I think it was Mark Ashton was saying we're hoping to have Cat 1 by summer. That'll be a big boost for the club as well, because then we'll start saving some money and bringing some youth players in. So I think long term is bright, short term is a bit of a disappointment, but we can't have everything, can we? And as long as things are going good on and off the field, I'm happy, and I think we should all be happy. We shouldn't take this season as the mean. This is the outlier. Let's take next season and the season after that as the building blocks to get to the next season. So,
Steve,
with the result, I'm happy with the win.
Nicely said. I feel kind of optimistic now. All right. Well, you take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Look after yourselves.
All right.
Steve.
See you, Steve. All the best. There we go, Lee. We've got Colin's coming in. Colin, how you doing? You're back from the South Coast, I see. You've been down there all week. Oh, Colin, you're on mute. You're muted. Bear with us, everybody. Just bear with us a second. Colin, come back out. We'll see if we can get you back in. Don't know what's happened there. Colin's on mute. He's been down the South Coast all.
Yeah, I know. He sent me some. He sent me some pictures. Yeah, he sent me some pictures. Yeah.
So good comments there from Mike and Steve. I mean, Steve's completely correct, and we are in a good place on and off the pitch, I think. Colin, you're back. Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can. Good to see you.
Oh, yeah, I had a lovely, went down on Monday morning, and I had a lovely, came home after breakfast today. We was going to stay for another day or until later afternoon, but we decided to come back. But we had a lovely, beautiful time and met some really lovely people down there.
Nice down there.
Funnily enough, me and Venice had a cup of tea with a person from Ipswich, believe it or not. He had a beach hut and he made us a cup of tea. We had a couple of seats. And he was an Ipswich supporter of old, but he's now a Bournemouth season ticket holder.
Oh, okay.
And he forecast us to lose 3-1. So I didn't see him this morning. I wish that I had done, but and our landlord, where the B&B where he was a Bournemouth season to get older, and he nearly refused to serve me breakfast this morning.
That'd have been mean of him, Colin, that wouldn't there? There's no need for that, is there? No need for
No,
that. You
but no, that was a
delighted with the result,
fantastic.
though. Delighted with the result last night. I mean, and the support was fantastic as well.
Oh, it was just fantastic down there last night. Met some lovely people, and I was speaking to a lovely young couple actually. So I got there quite early because I would never go and have a chat with people, and I sat on this block with these they were a couple. They were both about 25, 26. They were a lovely couple. The young girl was a carer, she told me, and they told me they came to Portman Road earlier in the season for the first time, and they said, not just them, but loads of other people, Bournemouth supporters they spoke to, since they came to Portman Road, really hoped Ipswich stayed up, because they were treated really so well at Portman Road when they came to our place, and they really hoped we stayed up. I said to them, I saw them before the game, and I said to them, I said, I think we'll win. They said, well, I'm not so sure about that, but after tonight, we hope you win, quite a few games and stay up. So, we've I think we've gained a lot of friends along the way this year. One thing I will say, look, I agree with a lot that Mike and Steve said, but it probably is mission impossible. Probably, I do say probably with a small p, probably.
Small p, I know you're going to say that.
No, but the thing you have to say to yourself is there are some funny things happening in football. Whether that'll happen this season or not, I don't know. It's like the season before Leicester won the league. I mean, they won 7 out of their last 9 games or something like that.
They did.
And the next season they won the Premier League.
Yeah.
And they've won the FA Cup since. So you have to say to yourself that, you just must believe. And I believe in life. My father brought me up that way, and I'm glad he did. My father always believed, I remember going to Allen Road one night. That season we played Leeds 4 times. And I remember the Allen Road game. That was the one, really, out of the 4. I went up with my mate Kev in his Beetle. There was over 50,000 in Allen Road that night. And they were arguably one of the best sides in Europe at the time, including Barcelona and Real Madrid. They were one of the best sides in Europe. Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter, Johnny Giles, that lot. Alan Clark, Duncan McKenzie scored that night. And we drew 1-1, and after extra time. And I'll tell you what, nobody gave us much. It was a good side, obviously, but nobody gave us much of a chance going up there against that great Leeds side. And then we played them again, and we drew again, and we finished up beating them, in the third replay, and unfortunately we lost in the semi-final. But what I'm trying to say is nobody really gave us half a prayer against that great Leeds side. But, like my dad said before we went up, all I remember him saying, we're in this quarter-final for a reason. We ain't in this quarter-final because we're rubbish. We're in here because we've got half a chance, and we finished up beating them. But, and we've had other great results. Whoever thought we'd win 4-1 at St Etienne? One of the greatest sides in Europe at home at the time. So you have to have belief. And I'll tell you what, every one of those 1,200 or 1,300 there last night, and I always say this because I mean it from my heart, right? They were tremendous. They were tremendous for the club. I'm sure Mark Ashton would say the same thing. Right behind it, not just like one of these clubs who's seen them at Portman Road, haven't we, Matt and Lee? When they get a lucky goal and they start singing for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We've seen it before, haven't we, Lee? We've seen it before, Matt. But home and away, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate. I always say that. I'm not a big-headed person. I'm fortunate. I've retired now. I've worked all my life. I put a few bobs away, and I'm able to go to games. I'm fortunate. But in all the away games I go to, especially at the home support's good, but the away support has been tremendous. Now, I just spoke about, Matt, about I was going away in the 70s and that. And I'm going to say this because any of you my age would have to agree with me. Apart from the odd games, obviously when we took a hell of a lot of people, like semi-finals and that. I mean, you know, we was top of the first division, and our away support was always decent, but never as vocal as it is now. It's absolutely tremendous, and it does help. I mean, I know people say sometimes they say, well, you know, I'm not so sure that helps that great deal, but it does. And I think we not so much dragged them over the line last night, but I think we made, or all of those fans last night made that extra difference. And I don't like to plead, but I would say to everybody listening to this tonight who's fortunate enough to have a season ticket or a ticket to go on Saturday, please, you know, there'll be 27,000 of us there on Saturday, less than 3,000. You know, like I said to Lee on a text today, let's make it, I don't mean it nastily, but let's make the place a bit hostile. Let's get loud, let's get proud, and really get behind those teams. Because I'm thinking now. I know Mike is probably thinking now, you know, Colin, it's all done. Perhaps it may be. But if we get that result, even if it's a 1-0 own goal, if we get that result on Saturday, I'm absolutely sure that on Sunday, on this lovely show of ours, the conversation will be a little bit slightly different than it would have been on Tuesday evening.
Let's hope you're right, Colin.
You know, I mean, I look at it like this, and that would have been a very, very big kick in the BALLSs for Wolves, because on Tuesday morning they all knew we get a win tonight, we go 12 points in front of Ipswich, and Ipswich have got a really stinking hard game Wednesday night, which they're going to lose, right? So every Wolves fan, every Wolves staff member, and every person connected to the Molyneux, right, would have thought, and anybody who say differently would be lying, anybody who thought differently, they would have thought that come Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, we'll still be 12 points in front of Ipswich. And at worst, after 5 o'clock on Saturday night, we'll be 9 points better off than Ipswich. As it is at the moment, they're now thinking completely differently, Lee and Matt. They're now thinking we could possibly be 6 points in front of Ipswich on Saturday night, where a lot of Wolves fans would have been saying on Tuesday evening at 10 o'clock, we'll be 12 points in front of them, or 9 at worst. You know, so I think, you know, we might have got in their heads a little bit after last night, which would be great. Also, however much I hate to admit it, because I think Cunha has been, let's see, use the proper word. Cunha has been not a very nice. His attitude has not been very good. I don't think in a lot of games. I've got to be careful what I say. His attitude has not been very good. A lot of people, you know, have said a lot of things about him, and a lot of people I've spoken to are actually quite disappointed he won't be playing on Saturday because they can't have a go at him. That's not me. My answer to that would be, I'm pleased he's not playing, because
Me too.
Although he is all the above, he's a world-class footballer.
It's really good, yeah.
And with him playing on Saturday would have hurt us, I personally think. And they're
Really.
very, very much a slightly worse side without him for definite. And that's a big bonus for us. He's got an extra game, a very big bonus. Because I had a look at their fixture list today. Their very next game after us is Tottenham at Wolves. And again, Lee and Matt, and again, Lee and Matt, you remember what Tottenham did to us at Portman Road?
Nelly, 4-1.
There you go.
Mm.
They're losing tonight 1-0, but anybody who thinks Tottenham is a walkover, give your head a wobble, as Mike would say.
All right, Colin.
That's not a walkover.
Let's leave it there, Colin. Great to hear from you. I'm glad you had such a great time with Venetia down on the South Coast. Came back with 3 points. It's all good, Lee. Very quickly, Lee, looking ahead to Saturday, do you hope McKenna keeps that almost starting 11 that we saw last night? I'm sure there's going to be other changes in there. I'm pretty certain Jaden will probably come in for Johnson. I can see that being one change. But would you, if you could have counsel with him, would you say try and keep that side that we had last night? Just because, as Mike said earlier, it looked fluid. It looked like a team, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that right-hand side is up for debate. Normally it's been someone a bit more attacking at home. Will we go for it? I think, again, it comes down to how he lines up against the opposition. I would like to think that he would keep the same shape to a point. But again, if Jaden comes in, then that's almost a 4 across. So that would probably mean Cisse would come and play him behind the lap. And if Broadhead stays, he would then move out to the left. So I think that would be what would happen if Jaden comes in. Because I can't see the front three changing because Amar is injured and such like. So that those three that started up front, if it then becomes a 4, then that would be Jaden on the right, I think, and then Broadhead would move over to the left. I'll be disappointed if Broadhead doesn't start. I will be disappointed.
Of course, was on the bench last night, wasn't he? He's not been around since the top of the year. He could get some game time on from the bench maybe on Saturday.
Yeah, but again, it wouldn't surprise me if he turned around and started him. But I think I think if Phillips came through the game all right, I would think he would come in for Morsey. Because they're our best two midfielders. And the people are saying about keeping Townsend. I mean, if Leafer's feet's coming in back in, isn't he?
Most likely. I think he's had most of our sort of big chance creation this season, just for those marauding rounds down the left. But Townsend showed that, I think Mike said earlier, or someone said earlier, if Davis was to move in the summer, you've got a ready-made left back right there for us, haven't you, in the full league? Very quickly, what do you think the score might be Saturday? Do you think we can edge it? I mean, we obviously beat them at Molineux, didn't we? A deserved win, I feel. I mean, we had to play out the fire, didn't we? That last second header from Taylor, but a deserved win, I think that was. I
think it could be another 2-1 in our favour. It wouldn't surprise me if we see that. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet.
No.
So yeah, I would say 2-1 with them scoring in the 96th minute or something ridiculous.
Make it something nervous.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 2-1 hopefully, but it's the Premier League. That's all.
Yeah. Who knows? All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's been a show of celebration. Look at Italy. We've done nearly an hour and a half here, but wins have been few and far between this season, haven't they? And last night was our 4th, so one to celebrate. Great to get everyone's comments. Thanks for watching wherever you are, be it Suffolk, UK, New Zealand, as we've had with Greg and Chris. You're all welcome. Gov should hopefully, if he's well, we'll be back outside the stadium on Saturday. We'll be back here Sunday lunchtime to hopefully review 3 points against Wolves. So take it easy, everybody, and we'll see you very soon.
All
the best.
Bye-bye.